Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. We are talking round 7 of the NBL. It's in the books, and what a weekend it was. Streak snapped, some contenders flexing, and a few teams staring down some honest, hard questions. We're going to count down all 10 clubs from the bottom to the top in this week's Power Rankings and dig through who stands where. If you haven't already, make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you are watching or listening to us on. Give us a follow across X, Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook at The Chris Mack Show is where you'll find us. But let's dive into our power rankings. And at number 10, probably no surprise, it is the defending champions, the Illawarra Hawks. They're 2-7. We start with those Hawks who stay anchored to the bottom. They were hammered at home by New Zealand and then edged in Adelaide. Unfortunately for the Hawks, despite some improvement, it's the same story. The effort's there, the execution isn't. They just can't string together 4 good quarters. Davo Hickey's return is a bright spot. It does give them some spark, but unfortunately, one man will not fix the challenges and gaps in their structure and cohesion. They do have plenty of soul-searching ahead, that is for certain the Illawarra Hawks, if they had to claw their way back to the glories of last season or anywhere near that. Coming in at 9, the Cairns Taipans. They are 3-7. They are finally off the base with a gritty win over the Jack Jumpers. They've broken that streak of losses. Jack McVeigh's return has given them some toughness and a little bit of trademark edge. But let's be realistic. One result probably doesn't overcome that over a month of pain between wins. They've got to back it up. They've got to show some consistency just to demonstrate this wasn't just a flicker, a proper sign of life. But to be fair, again, they're still a long way off the pace from what we're seeing at the moment. Into 8, and it's the Brisbane Bullets. They are the definition of inconsistency at the moment. One week they will torch Cairns by nearly 30. The next they're blown out by 37 on their home court against an up and down Sydney. Casey Prather's in serious form, but the support around him is just not consistent. They're not giving him what he needs to go and get W's on a regular basis. Until they can find that second or third reliable scoring option, Jalen Adams as a 6-man looks great at times, but it's not consistent. They're going to keep hovering around this mark until something changes. Moving into 7th spot, and we have the New Zealand Breakers. Again, like the Bullets, 3-7. They finally look like the team we expected, dismantling Illawarra by 42 points. Sam Menenga has been outstanding at times, averaging around 17 points and 8 boards a game. He's leading from the front when he's on. But one night, again, doesn't make a season, and the challenge now is turning individual dominant performances, whether they be halves or full games, into a streak. Are they capable? Absolutely. Are they consistent? Hell no. They've got some work to do, but they've got the blocks to do it with. They just need to perform on a regular basis. We move up to 6. It's the Tassie Jack Jumpers. They're 5-4, which is okay, but it could be better. 2 home losses sting this week, especially to Cairns. Plenty of guys getting double digits, but when the game's on the line, they're still searching for a closer. They scraped one the week before against Sydney, but it's not, again, the regular for them. It's not panic stations either, but the Jack Jumpers need to rediscover that Scott Roth grind you down DNA that they've built their brand on that led them to a championship only a couple of years ago. That's where they need to find. They've got the ability to do it. If they can get David Johnson back, that will go a long way towards launching and slingshotting them up the ladder into playoffs rather than play-ins. Into the top 5, the top half of the league in Perth, they've started to show some signs that they might be more like a traditional Red Army-supported Perth. They beat Tassie. They did lose a tight one to Phoenix, but that's no disrespect. You can see the pieces starting to fit together. David Duke Jr. looks the part. He's athletic, he's disciplined, and he gives them a two-way spark they've missed. They come now for a big road test against Adelaide this week, and that'll tell us a lot about whether they're climbing or just treading water mid-table. This is a do or die. This will give us a real scope on the Perth Wildcats. Up to 4th, the Sydney Kings, 5-5. A massive response this week. They smashed Brisbane and then handed Melbourne their first loss of the year. There was some lapses in that, though, that Brian Goorjian will want to work on, but they'll be stoked to be the first team to knock off Melbourne United. That's the Sydney we expect. Unfortunately, we've only seen them really twice this year in those wins over Adelaide and Melbourne. There's something about those big games that get Sydney firing. One thing it looks like is Brian Goorjian has started to get them believing again. They certainly played freer, faster, and showing the swagger of a previous champion. That is what we're looking to see from Sydney. Back at 500, they are trending the right way and very much back in the conversation. Key pieces are performing well, like Xavier Cooks. Kendrick Davis is still firing, and Delhi looks like he's improving. Things are trending in the right direction for the men in purple. In at number 3, the Adelaide 36ers. They've been one of the pleasant surprises this season. Obviously, with Bryce Cotton coming in, we expected something from them. But then when Montrez parted ways in the preseason, we questioned exactly what would happen. They survived a tough one against Illawarra, and while there are some defensive cracks, they're starting to find ways to win, even when Bryce is a little bit quieter. DJ Vasiljevic has been hitting some big shots more frequently. He's starting to show that leadership and really lean into his chip on the shoulder energy. It is a positive sign. Things are far from done, though. He needs to be doing it on a regular basis. Critics had questions, and the Sixers are starting to answer them, at least for now. Again, a big game this week against Perth that will probably tell us a little bit more about the Sixers and their DNA and what they can come up with against a Wildcat side that looks like they're starting to build and soon enough may, just may, be nipping at their heels. It's Bryce Cotton up against Bryce Cotton's former team. That will be huge in itself. Certainly that tough double as well. They've got the Breakers away leading into that game, so this is going to give us a real snapshot of their contender credentials. Up into the top 2, and it's all things Victoria at the top of the ladder. The Victorian sports fans will have you believe that it should always be that way. But Southeast Melbourne Phoenix are absolutely performing above their measure. Josh King's group are rolling. They closed out Perth, and they're looking every bit a contender at the moment at 6-2. Nathan Sobey's playing MVP level hoops. He's aggressive, he's controlled, and leading from the front. Their squad balance, depth, and trust in the system is working absolutely brilliantly under King's tutelage. And if they can keep this form, top 2 might be locked in by the turn of the calendar year. We look forward to seeing what comes of it, because there's some big games coming on the schedule ahead for the Phoenix, and just will be the right test of them. And into number 1, as it has been since almost day dot of season 2025-26, of course, it is Melbourne United. They do now have that blip on the radar, 9-1. They are still top of the mountain. The streak is over, but let's keep some perspective. They're 9-1. It's the most complete roster in the league. Coach Dean Vickerman summed it up best. He said, we're sloppy and lazy at times against the Kings, but the standards stay the same. That's the culture that separates the good from the great. They've got Dash Daniels, who keeps impressing. You can see shades of NBA-ready polish already. He's yards ahead of where his brother was at the same point. Expect the Melbourne United to bounce straight back against Illawarra midweek before that huge derby with the Phoenix. It could be a top 2 clash at that point. One thing is for certain, Melbourne United are certainly the benchmark. They are the measuring stick until someone can sustain knocking them off more consistently. Well, it's been a huge week. There's a huge week to come. We can't wait to see what round 8 has to offer in the NBL. It's going to be huge with some of these matchups. So many games starting to have so much influence on the standings as we start to turn our way towards the midpoint of the season. But that is a wrap for your Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose Power Rankings for round 7. Well, that's our who's rising and who's sliding. Let us know your top 5 in the comments. Let us know who we've missed the mark with this week. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, make sure you're subscribed on whatever platform you are tuned in on. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell as well to get those notifications. Give it a like, get involved in the comments, and share it around. And a big thanks, as always, for tuning in to this episode of The Daily Dose on the Chris McPherson Show, your home of the black and white of sport opinion. Absolutely no greys here.